key you guys into what's going on right now. This is going to be a Carrie Fab Diaries episode. This is our green Bronco for Jeff. I want to get going on this. So really what I was doing was just clean up to get all this stuff final welded. You know, something to think about when you are building stuff is everything you build, even though it's cool, you got to weld it all. And it gets to be quite a bit, especially for areas like this and shock pockets. So we're finally on the closing end of the big dig to get all this welded and get to a point where we can start building more and moving forward. I kind of owe Jeff to get this thing to a certain place, and that's where it is now. All of this interior portion, these rear windows are all optic armor. They're 1/4 inch. They're supposed to be scratch resistant and I think fire resistant, or at least some high heat resistance. This middle portion that we are working out of, where the third seat is, that's kind of my classic place to stand in. That's all done. There's speed rolls that kind of match everything. And then that center thing you see here, that's a submarine strap bracket. So that's for your 5th point in your harnesses. The jack pump is back here. That thing also clears all its plumbing on both sides. And it's hidden behind the seat. So harness bar for the shoulders there. And then all this stuff got final welded. We added some filler triangles in the corners there just so we could be able to get into it. We couldn't get into it before, it was just too tight. There's a lot of weather stripping in these areas. We got what we got. You know, some of this we have to have like a breakup where the panel is, but for the most part it's there. So really the exercise that I'm going to take you guys through is going to be building out the fuel cell filler necks and the vapor or fume extraction system. So right now I am going to work on getting the cell just roughed in here. I'll probably pull the hardware out of these areas, but I wanted to do some final welding on these areas. Get the bongs dialed, get all this dialed. I think what I'm going to do, one of the tricks when you see like some of this inconsistency where there's spotting, is you hit it lightly with a wire wheel. So I'm going to do that really quick, and then I'm going to put WD-40 on this area before we get the fuel cell in. So I try not to take the heat mark off. But it's kind of a little move to get some of the like impurity off of this stuff. Just the silicone bronze specifically. One of the best silicone bronze guys I've seen his work like personally was Mike Robinson on Dan DeGatta's Super Crew, and it was so tidy, I can't believe it. All right, let's get WD-40 going. You want to use this thing?
No, that. Right here.
Yeah.
Okay,
Be careful.
oh, it's kind of what?
All right. Oh man, I got one spot I gotta get. Hey, easy on the battery. Save some for me. Got one little spot. So this guy, you can see the root. There's a little bit of root left here, so I'm gonna go in and just burp right into that intersection, and that's right where the fuel cell should kind of butt up. Went through, got all these guys. So everything that was just left, root past, went through and closed them out just to be done, just to get closure on all the welding on this thing. So we'll get that, and then we're gonna get the fuel cell in there. That's to throw the torch on my shoulder so I don't feel it tugging on me. I'm at 250 amps, but I don't use it all. Fingers burning. Discomfort is good. Alright, we're gonna rip this thing. Post one hit. Alright. Starts off's a little weird, but I just buried it right where I knew that the fuel cell would go in. So let's get the fuel cell. 75 gallons. We're back. Still pleased with this. Just how this hold down works. I love the details of the step roll, on the areas that support the tube. But Harman did this and they nailed it exactly how we wanted it. So now we have a pretty good mapping. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a light in here because we need a light. And then I'm gonna unbox all of our Cartech stuff, get it laid out on the table so we can look at what we're working with. And then, I'm gonna wanna pop holes in these and get things set up for the fillers to go in. Oh, we're gonna be out of space on this guy. Maybe like this. Not feeling super smart here. Okay, deal. Get a little bit of bearing here. Still some root passing here. Needs to be final welded, but that's definitely for when the hardtop comes off. Sometimes I get everything from Cartech if I know it can all go in one order. I know this is just gonna be our long tube. Ooh, this thing is dull from when I had to work with it. So this will probably just be raw material. Yeah. So that was, I did a guesstimate here to see how much we're gonna need. And I could totally be off, so we'll see. Don't lock on me. Hey. All right, filler necks. Lots of U-bends. There's a method to this. I'm also gonna save this box. Those are the goods right there. Fresh air system. Oil for the boys, for sure. I think the only thing we're missing is silicone hose couplers on the small size, which is fine. T-bands for the big stuff, but not for the small stuff, which is fine, because we have all that stuff in stock. Sweet. Throw all this trash away. All right, T-bands. These are your higher class hose clamp. So I have enough of these for where I think connections are going to be, which is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So fuel fill burp, burp, fuel fill burp, and then, you know, venting, somewhere where we can dump it into this thing. So there's a dual exit here. The filter is essentially, it's just working backwards, right? It's pulling air in from the cabin and it's extracting it outside. The fuel fills are cool. So these are one of my classic used items. This, just mild seal filler. And then let me open this box really quick. Then you pair it with this guy, which is a fill cap that threads into here, quick lock. And that's a dry brake too, if you're ever feeling spicy. So this will be a nice accent piece. I designed it already for the exact size up here. So that's gonna be the primary shape. And then on the other side of that is gonna be this guy living in here. And we already kind of thought about space. We wanted to make sure we didn't collide with the tube structure here. We want to make sure we can make a saddle that holds this thing in there. So we're in a pretty good spot, period. We got to make one bend over to there, and then I'm going to try to figure out how to run some uniform tubing for the air system. But I don't know if we're going to get that or if we're just going to have to make both things look clean and just keep it like that. So right off the bat, if we want to just talk about fabrication with this thing, I'm looking at this. Usually with these, we make a saddle, which is just a half, just like it sounds. It's a saddle, so it's half of this tube diameter, and then it's got a hose clamp that wraps around it, so it holds it on the chassis like this, saying my arm is like a support tube. We have a little different application here because this is going through a window space, or it's going to a flat mounting surface. So I'm almost thinking I'm gonna make a beauty ring that goes on here that mounts, boom, done, either to probably to the back side of this thing. So, you know, there'll be like a hole cut out, and then there'll be like a couple more hardware locations, and I'll do them smaller hardware. This is a 1024, so I'll do a like a 832 just to downsize, so the prominent hardware is the outside, and then the detail hardware is the inside. But I'm gonna figure out where, you know, I want this corner to reflect the cap. So it's not gonna be centered in here. You know, purposefully is it wanted to be right here. So the mass of it is not centered in here, it's right over here. So I'm gonna probably look at what this ring is gonna take first. I'm gonna put all this stuff away, get these in, because remember, I don't want to draw any of the inside, and I don't even know if I need to draw because I don't know if I'm gonna get that much of a symmetry win, but I told Jeff that I would, so that's probably enough for us to draw regardless. But you know, figuring out where this ring needs to be, and I'm just gonna get those fixed and Clecoed in place. You know, it'll just be a steel ring that goes right on here. I'll pay respect to how much this wants to stick out, you know, as far as this detail, how much it wants to stick out outside of here, because we want it to be pretty flush. Get those Clecoed on and get to that point. So right now, clean up the mess, put stuff back in the boxes, and then get a template going for this guy. All right, I just got this guy. I split the difference, find my center line, and I can literally just draw it on the template paper And it's really just going to be my inside. It leaves enough of a perforation or like a scribe on there. I have my center line right there. Come back. I'll chunk in center line. And then I'll just do a couple of these guys. What's the other option? You can get a normal compass with a pencil on it. For a while I had this one with like a pin taped onto it, but a pin's a consumable and a pencil you have to sharpen. So scribe, if if I'm doing some stuff where I'm working on the steel, a scribe works super well. I got this at the Sand Sports show maybe 5 years ago at one of those little booths where they sell a bunch of subpar fabrication tools. What I'm going to want to do now is just add probably, what do we want to do, 1 inch? Once the cap comes off, it's just going to be this. This is like the 4 5/16, 4 3/8, whatever you want to call that right there. Get our ID on there, and then have a ring that'll back in there, and we'll cut out for this into here, and then I'll set that thing. Reset yourself. There you go. Then I'll set that thing in there where I know the bolts are going to be complementing. They're not going to be super close or like infringing into here. So it's really going to be taking that greater radius and seeing what looks right with the cap on here, and then translating that. But right now I'm just going to get this ring built. Can you see it? There you go. I have my center line. I'm going to pull another inch out of here, get that, and then it's just going to be a nice chipboard ring. I can transfer it. I'll probably put my whole layout in there too, but I'm going to do that secondary after I put it up on the car. 3 1/4 is what we want. Try to draw a line on where, like precision wise, right? Like if I'm making a critical component that needs to have perfect geometry and lineup and tight mounting surfaces, I'd put some more time into this, but I do this, especially for the clientele. It's not fair to just drill all this crazy time into these things if you don't have to, and to get the same result. So for this, I know I'm going to get an optimal result by not having to do insane, Dicom, scribing this thing onto aluminum first, making an aluminum mock-up, like transferring that, or even on steel with Dicom. Where this is just a repeatable thing. I have a template. I'm not laying up the steel twice. I'm just going to transfer this template twice. And it's got all the information I need. I know that the interior portion gets stitch welded, not a continuous weld, but a stitch weld. And the outside is our finish area that we want to be nice. You see that? So that's information for me on the scribe. So when I start cutting, if there's a shadow or something, I just follow the dots. What I'm going to do with the interior is cut that with a blade. Well, actually, I brought my radius scissors over here. So there's smaller scissors you can use. If you guys have ever done Lexan car bodies where you have to cut the wheel openings out, those are great scissors for cutting curvatures and chipboard. If we're going to do the chipboard question right now, we can do it. The chipboard is a 04, either a 40 or a 42, 042 or a 040 chipboard from Paper Mart. Now here's the other thing. Do I want to sacrifice the center line now? And I'm totally good on that. You're kind of intrusive, man. All right, so outer's done.
can get into a pretty good groove with using these. You know, they nibble, right? So you're never getting a fat, like longer cut like a scissor. Something else with the chipboard, if you go to order the chipboard, I hate, like, I get in fear about telling people it comes from Paper Mart because I'm afraid they're going to run out, but I'm not going to sit and live in fear. If that ever happens, we're just going to figure out another thing. But, you know, I've ordered the thinner stuff and I've ordered the thicker stuff, and they both have pros and cons. The thicker stuff will not manipulate what you're going for. So the thicker stuff will let you put brakes in it, and it's great for plate work because it kind of holds its shape better where it doesn't lie to you. The thinner stuff is great to form or to cut with, but then again, the thick stuff is hard to cut with. So 040, like I said, I've tried it a couple times to go thinner and thicker. It always seems to be the ticket. So that's my ring. You know, fits on this guy. It's a little bigger, but when I transfer this onto the actual steel, then I'm going to cut on the inside of the steel, and then it's going to be even tighter. So I think it's going to go on there, and it's going to render something premium for fitment. But you know what I can do too with this? So I can already look, and I can go up here and say, okay, where's this going to be? You know, what looks right? So ideally, like that radius, you'd want to do a center line, and you'd want to come out here exactly where that wants to hit. We'll try to get it as good as we can. But, you know, building this, I built it to the cap. So I actually think it's going to work. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to final this out and then figure out, you know, mounting locations as far as how many bolts we want holding this thing. It does turn into a design detail when we start putting hardware into stuff. It'll be countersunk just like this. Like I said, little downsize on this. So the primary leading hardware is going to be the outside, and then the secondary hardware that'll be the detail that shows that this is fastened will be smaller. And you know, obviously this is going to be the main detail here. Something else when we make, this is going to be, so this is totally something that I had space on. This detail. You got to make sure with these things when you screw them on, especially because we're not clocking this in a saddle. So when this thing goes on here, excuse my one-handedness, and you got to crank on this tight, and then that is going to be the way that we want to put our ring on there based on where the holes are in the ring. So we have this thing level with the ground, and it's reading level when the cap is on. So this is going to be 90 thou chromoly. I don't really do anything out of mild steel, so it's, you know, anything you can expect. Like we have 063. If I have 063, I'm going to do that chromoly instead. Just it's going to be easier to cut. It's only doing one primary thing. It's just a flange for this. There's no point in building it any bigger if it's already getting welded to something that's so thin anyways. It's about just getting the structure right. So, you know, we'll get this thing cut out. We'll get it placed in here. Like I said, I do need to go back and make some layout on here, and I'm going to do that first. I'm probably going to grab this thing and put it back on so I have a center line to go out to get my spacing right on this thing. So something we want to do here, instead of, I don't have that recipe, but I know ChatGPT does, so really I just roughed in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 holes on a 3 3/4 radius to center where I want them. I'm going to get that information, so I'm probably going to want to input something like this. I would like to do a hole layout on a circular template. The radius from center line to the center line of each hole is 2.75 inches. I would like to do 7 locations like that. What is my spacing between those at the outside of the radius? Boom, 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 boom. 2.46. So now, rip this bad boy. what I need to do too is set that thing. So if I'm at 2 3/4, two, okay, 2 3/4. That's gonna move around like a son of a bitch. See, I cut the center off, dude. I just need something light. Don't move. Don't move. Don't move. Don't move. All right. Now we can go around. We can start with 1. And then we can go. We're locked in on this thing. Yeah, we're locked in. So now I can go right over to here. I can mark this guy. I bet some of you are going to kill me for this right now. I don't know how primitive I'm doing this. But I think what matters is the result. And also ChatGPT. I use the shit out of ChatGPT. I don't use Google or DuckDuckGo or anything. I just pretty much use ChatGPT for everything. So all we're relying on right now is just that spacing on the ring. We don't even need this thing anymore. All right, good. So this gets out of the locations. I'm gonna check center on these things because that was the only thing I was a little concerned about. We're a 1-inch spread, so we want to go right down the middle. Boom, boom. Hello?
Have you seen the collectors? Collectors, they're in a box, and I put the little star pieces that get welded on the inside that box.
We have the collectors on the car, right?
Yep.
But you're just...
And we had an extra set.
Oh.
So then I put the extra pieces inside that box.
It might be shop manager Luke because he puts everything away in places.
Okay.
I haven't touched them specifically because I know there was...
I just didn't know if you guys shipped those back or something and returned them. And then I put those...
What do you think? We're the worst. No, we have them. They're also... They're for the same primaries that Dolly gets. So we'll probably be able to use them.
So we might put them in Dolly.
I don't know if he did that, but I know they were on the chassis table and he went through an extensive chassis table thing. I'd fire a text to him. Colin is one of my favorite humans, I've ever seen. He's so focused. Oh, and he's so ambitious, and I feel like he's got so much in him that at some point, with working for us, he sees so much potential, and I just don't know if we serve it up fast enough for him. Like he has greatness in his life no matter what. That's gonna be something he has to find. It's not just being an expert fabricator. So here's our thing. I am satisfied with this. I have my center lines in here. I'm just gonna punch through. Something to note too when you do punch through on stuff like this, using a punch, do it lightly, because every time you punch through template paper into your steel, it's gonna blow out your layout hole, and then there's room for that layout hole where it's gonna be a hot dog in the hallway. So really it's just a light blow through, and then when I go to put it on a second one, I'm just gonna use a pen, extra fine tip Sharpie, and I'm just gonna dot it, and then we're solid. So I'm gonna get some steel and get these transferred and cut them. The way we're gonna do the interior, I'm gonna make a mark with a cutoff wheel. I'm gonna score into here and relieve it, and then I'm gonna air saw this thing out. Air saw will rip through 063, no problem. A little preparation going here. All right, let's roll over. Let's get center punch too. I always wipe down the material before I lay it out because it can cripple your pen, or at least take the life out of your pen. And I'm trying to go for longevity with a lot of this stuff. So I'm gonna do the interior and the exterior layout. Rip two of these guys right here. It's a pretty nice size, if you know what I mean. Just like a nice handful. Not too big, not too small. Got our pusher. Miscellaneous bits. Get this thing all piped on. Just gonna chunk it out and then I'll be able to detail it once I get done. This thing startled the shit out of me. You see that thing? Holy shit, dude. These are pretty much just rough cuts. I'm gonna clean them on the Burr King. And then we'll be ready to rip the insides. I just always spare the line so I can get right to it. You know, all this, it's so thin that I can easily just rip this stuff and not have an issue. pretty solid. Little rusty pieces. I'm gonna get the clamp going for this. I'm gonna probably do them right on the table here. This is kind of our larger fabrication area that's all walled in so we contain the mess. But I'm gonna get them clamped. I'm gonna score them with a battle axe just so I can get some kind of incision. Rip a air saw through here. I'll probably bring a backup blade and some tube wax just so I don't have to make multiple trips. I got one. Keep them pretty tight on the cut just so I don't have a lot of cleanup, because you know, inside cleanup like that is like a barrel sander, and that just uses a lot of your abrasive too. So I'm gonna hit the second one and then we'll clean them up and hole punch them while we're at it. All right. No need for an extra blade. Brought it just in case. All right, remember? We're gonna hit this thing super easy. You guys, thank you for being patient here. I'm getting back into learning how to set up cameras and talk and do this whole thing like we used to do the Fab Diaries. So it's gonna take a little bit for me to get this. And again, like when I'm doing this kind of layout stuff, understand I will base how critical something is per component, you know, or per repeatability. And make sure we get the win at whatever cost, but try to do it effectively where it doesn't cost a lot to do so. So that was not, I want to sharpen this thing. Let it start over. I'm not going to chase that. There we go. All right. I sharpened the center punch, and damn, I can feel it. Might also keep this template, have Luke draw it, because this would be good because we use those Geyser Bros fuel fill things so often. Every car we do. All right, then I'm gonna run through. I just like to mark the holes, so when I'm in the throes of drilling, I don't misread something. Ready to rip. I almost started drilling the holes in this thing, and I realized I just need to Cleco everything. So I have all my 1/8" holes set up for Cleco. Now I'm gonna just start ripping a little bit of cleanup on the stuff. Chilling. Doesn't need that much. I'm gonna do a quick run through with the DA sander. I need a new pad. I know this one's blown out. Oh yeah, smoker. That is just rude. So, 1/8 inch drilled. I'm gonna go get a DA pad. I got like so many different messes and different tables going on, it's insane. All right, let's take a gander at these things. These things are pretty ugly. We need a blow job. Always seems to be the case, huh? All right. Put some of this layout stuff over there. Make my mess on the steel table. Sorry, Thena. Okay, so rings are done. That's what we're doing. We're gonna have a little bit of standoff here. Again, I'm gonna get this thing, I'm gonna tighten the caps on this to get the clocking right. So I can see where that is in relation to the holes, so I can see where that is in relation to putting that up there. All right, we're here. So this is just my guide now. You know, this will go on the back side. But what we know is we have our hole locations. So now I'm gonna take this off, take the aluminum off, use this as a guide to mark. I'm gonna take this off, I'm gonna cut this hole, then I'm gonna put this back on and fix it in a couple locations where it's gonna hold true to the window. I'm gonna mark the window and I'm gonna cut the window. And then we're gonna be ready to put this on and put the filler in there and position it just right where I can mark it on this to get that clocking right. You know what I'm talking about, so the logo is flat to the earth. Lots of holes. That's pretty rough. That's pretty rough. What else I did is, mark these with an X because they're not exactly consistent. But once the fuel filler is on there, they're gonna need to be exactly, they're gonna be fitting to the fuel filler. So you're never gonna need to clock these randomly ever. I'm gonna go cut these things out. Same deal as before, except with these, it's not steel, so you can get a pretty solid rip as long as you re-up on your wax lubricant. It's also thicker, so it's not gonna ricochet as much. Sean Rubio, that used to work for me, he started cutting stuff with an air saw from upside down so he could watch the blade, and I always used to cut like this. The thing is, a lot of times too, the guide, you're cutting on your top surface and the guide will leave like vibration marks that you have to clean up or get rid of somehow. And it took me forever to finally adapt to this, and I wonder if it was just me being stubborn. So thank you, Sean. Now this is just like the only issue though when you're cutting upside down is you do need to get this cleaned up quite a bit, like the guts of this thing, and lubricated, because all the debris from cutting falls down into the mechanism. Find it or grind it. But this way I can see everything. I'm gonna go grab my test hit, make sure I can clear this. I'm gonna grab the barrel sander so I can just clean this up and bring it back to the table in one solid form. All right, we're in a good spot. Yeah, unless we want that outer lip, and I think we do. I think we're gonna want that lip to clear. So I'm gonna run through this with the barrel sander. Come back for a second. Shipment. Ooh-wee. Cool. Cool. Liking that. Good with that. So I'm gonna hit this on the other one, and then that's gonna get us enough information. Little hang up. I want it to be completely smooth. So I'm gonna look at all the edges, make sure it's consistent. And then I'm gonna get this second one in the same working order as where we have here. And then this is gonna be ready to go back. Well, we gotta go cut the window. So almost ready to go back on the car. That's a better circle. The key is to not try to grab it when it's falling. It's to make sure you look at where it lands and where it stops rolling. That's the key. I don't know how this is gonna cut. Scalpel. Just a wee bit of cleanup. It's nice, it's kind of hardened. It's not like soft like acrylic. You can kind of snap off parts of it. Cool. I'm gonna hammer the other side out. So I have the ring inside. I have the Clecos inside also because when I put the fill cap on, it's gonna handicap the fill cap going to the depth that we need or to the shallowness that we need. You got this guy. It's a little tight in there. But you see what we're going for, right? So I'm gonna, like I have this pressed on here flush. And we're gonna wanna do a little bit of spacing off of here. So I'll space this, I'll shim it. And then what I'm gonna come in and do is I'm gonna just tack very lightly on that ring. And get enough information. If I can just get like 3 tacks on there in different spaces, it's gonna hold us exactly where we want to be. And then this is gonna be half of the information. Well, it'll be a third because we need to get this one, we need to get this one, and then we need to get something in the middle of where that air pumper is gonna be. So let's get this stuff in place. The reason I need to get in here quickly is because I don't wanna melt or test where this optic armor melts. Checking my shims under here. I'm gonna go outside and check again. I'm gonna go way far up here. I got a bad tungsten, I don't want that at all. And then I think I'm gonna weld this whole thing continuously with silicone bronze. It's that bad of a tungsten, huh? Something I've adapted to with having a bigger space to work in is having stuff next to me. Like I used to not carry backup tungstens unless I was tangled up in a chassis because I could just go over to the radius master and sharpen them. And now like if I have to walk farther, it's not efficient. Okay, so I'm gonna put some pressure on this one. A little smoky. Make sure there's no tension on that. Okay, we're gonna do that right there, and then I'm gonna probably try to hold this. And I want that held somehow. There we go, that's gonna get it. All right, good. What did you shim it with? What'd you shim it with? Those are grade 8 washers. Cool, let's take the shims off. Let's look at it without the tape and stuff. That got me just what I wanted. Nice, consistent. Does it zoom in here? Nice and consistent through there. I don't know if it's focusing on that, but you know, everybody likes this lighting for content. Like people when they come to shoot here, like companies. And I don't like it. I like fluorescence. Like I like old school fluorescence. So this thing's in here. I'm gonna transfer our ground to the next side. Something to look at here. A lot of leverage. There's this also only Clecoed in 3 locations, and then this is loose on, you know, the panel. So I want to see what that does first. with all of it bolted together before I look at a secondary strap. I don't mind a little deflection because we're gonna have silicone transitions here to hold this, and then another silicone transition, and that's actually gonna drop down to a 2.5. I thought this was a 3 continuous all the way through, so we'll just get a coupler, a silicone coupler that starts at 3 and goes to 2.5, and then we'd get a 2 for 1 into that. So you can see what we're doing here. Well, this is crooked. Let's get this right. There we go. There we go. So that's on there pretty dang tight. This thing does move. Hey, Caleb, can you do me a solid while you're here? I think the rotation's on there, but I have some shims, and if you just press on this like as a flat face, I'm just gonna tack it in 3 spots. Are you clear?
Yep.
One. 2. 3.
All good?
Yep. Thank you. If they're around. All right, we're there. Number 2 is on. Shimmed. Spaced evenly. Come on, focus up, dude. There we go. All right. Gonna get some good symmetry out of this thing. Maybe this can reset itself in a nice way. It's like you have to tell it to do it, but it's all good. All right, kind of see what's going on here. So, we'll have both items. I'm gonna probably just weld those out right now so they're done. Then we'll get our pumper made, our pumper mount made somewhere. Just get all of our, we're just collecting data. We're pretty much just getting data, meaning finding points that we're gonna connect to, because that's all we're doing. We're just making points, and then essentially we're plumbing something with hardline. We're plumbing air, and we're plumbing fuel. I'm gonna tack these right at every inch so we don't deflect. Just get a bright light in your face. Alright, I think we should just send these away. See what I can do for a foot pedal here. I don't like the music that's playing on the stereo for the shop right now. I'm gonna have to go change it, even though I don't need to listen to it directly. I think we need some metal. A little hot. There's not a lot of different definition in the weld. See if I can tune this thing up a little bit. Alright, I know you guys don't have to watch this whole thing, so I'll just get you when I'm done. I think I'm gonna have to tap this down a little bit because you can see there's just a slight pull. Nothing crazy. So those are ready to rip. A little bit of that plastic. Didn't really do anything to the inside, which we're in a good spot with. Let those cool down, and then we'll get those back in the car. And then we will work on mounting the pumper and getting the pumper squared away. And I think we're gonna be in a good spot where we can just put a quick sketch together to get some direction on this thing. See what I mean? So these are just setting in there. I couldn't reach these unless I have help or extension on my arm. But you can see the primary read is the larger hardware. Cool. Spaced off nicely. Feeling pretty good about this. There we go. Cool. Okay, next order of business, getting that air pump in here. Obviously, I'm thinking right here in the middle. There's lines that we need to think about here. Pickup, return, vent. But I don't want to get in the way of those, so I'd have to hang it up higher. Central is what I'm going for, just to try to find symmetry and everything. So I'm gonna at least unbox it and see what the real estate is. See if we can rep a bracket that gets it up even higher, so the window, I mean, there's not gonna be much visibility, but at least it's not a full blockage. So we'll see what we get. I think the tubes will actually have to come out the bottom. So they'll probably come out the bottom, block some, and then go under these diagonal tubes through here, and then come out over here, and then pop back in. And I also have to figure, I'm like thinking if we wanna try to get something situated like we did with the fills where they're hung here, and I'm thinking maybe we have something here which is like a hard spot. We know the venting is going to be, you know, where that hose can hook up, because I'm really just building into space if I don't have that. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you guys so much for the support. Thanks for making it through this thing, and I'll catch you next time.